there we are. And I'm just going to kick this off before we actually go into the show. This is a statement by just me here. And I hope everybody can hear me and all that sort of carry on before I kick this all off. I am getting sick to my back teeth on what is going on out there. There is a whispering campaign against people, and it is affecting an absolute ton of people out there. And I'm just absolutely sick of it to my back teeth, as I've just said. I think it needs to end, and I'm calling on everybody to just flip and knock it in the head, because it is doing people's mental health in. We have got so many people out there who have been getting seriously affected by all this chatter and whispering and slagging people off the camera, slagging people off on Twitter, and not having any fallback from it. It needs to end now. And if you're going to slag people off, at least have the grapefruits to actually do it to people's faces instead of doing it in the whispering and anonymous behind the scenes and all that. I am just fed up with it, and the block hammer is coming down, and I just do not care who you are anymore. This all needs to end. And I thought this was going to happen a couple of weeks ago with the Stadia 100. Unfortunately, it has. It is just coming to a point where if you're not with us, you're against us, and it is just awful to see. And the toxicity, quotes, needs to end, and that is both negative toxicity and the positive toxicity out there. I am not going to deal with any more of it, and if it's going to affect the people who I call my friends as well on here, I'm going to be sticking up for them no matter what. Guys, we all are big enough and ugly enough, in my case, to not be doing this. People are wanting to play games, and this is gaming after all. It's meant to be fun. This isn't meant to be politics or anything like that. We're here to have fun, and this is what we are about here. We are about having fun. So here, that is my statement here. I'm not putting up any more of this nonsense out there. And if you don't believe me or you don't care, block me on Twitter, unfollow us here, downvote us here. I do not give a flying one anymore. It's now over. So we are now move on to our normal programming now, and we're going to be doing Cloudy's Roundup, where we look at all the news throughout the week and we talk about things positive and negative, no matter what platform it is. So we're going to kick that off now. So hello.
Hello.
Okay. Hello.
Good evening.
Yeah. Now we're back to normal programming now. So guys,
we've been allowed in. Yep.
We're been allowed in. I was just making sure that this was just for me and all that. So here we go. So Sally, haven't seen you in a couple of days. How are you?
I've been quite good. Obviously big news this week. I'm sure we'll cover it later, but I bought Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. In anticipation of obviously xCloud or Xbox Cloud Gaming beta, Windows 10 PC. How long they make it? I don't know. But I've been enjoying some Burnout Paradise Remastered earlier today.
Oh, that's good. I think we are going to be going back onto the Xbox stuff later. I think we'll leave that near the end, because that is quite significant sort of developments this week. I'm not in yet, and I'm really annoyed about it. Barry, what about your good self? It feels like just yesterday I was speaking to you.
That's probably because it was. I think I speak to you most days during the week, which is, I'm not complaining. That's not a bad thing. No, I'm good. I look, relatively busy week. Not as much time for gaming as I'd like, but hey, that sometimes the kind of you roll with the punches on those weeks. But I'm sure that I'll definitely get time in either later this evening or across the weekend to sink my teeth into some games and give xCloud in in a browser a proper spin.
Good. And I have been awesome as always. If you believe that, you believe anything. So for people who don't know what Cloudy's Roundup is we just go through the news of the week on all the different platforms. And we will start off with Luna. What's the news on Luna? There is no news.
We were talking about this just before we went on stream.
Yeah, we were, yeah. I think the only thing we could come up with was that obviously as part of the DLC for Immortals Phoenix, that's available to be played in Luna.
Yeah. So Luna, actually, not disappointed is probably the wrong thing. I figure the expectations for self, because over the last number of weeks now, I think it was like 4 or 5 weeks in a row where we're getting a game a week, and it has basically stopped now, or feature or something. And this week seems to be nothing at this moment in time.
Depends what way you look at it, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the sleeping giant is sleeping for a reason, and something erupts that you might not expect. So, but yeah, I admit it's been a very quiet week.
Sammy, get your mind out from the gutter. I knew exactly what you were thinking there. Get it out from the gutter.
No, with Luna, it's a bit difficult. They're coming in. The big news with Amazon this week was probably the Lord of the Rings. That's this week. Lord of the Rings being
I think that broke last Friday night.
Yeah, it was
late night for us.
I don't remember talking about it last week, so in which case it's this week for us. Obviously, that's another big Amazon game that was announced and has been abandoned during development. It's a lot of people are saying it's starting to become a pattern. To be fair, it's been a pattern with a lot of big game studios, and particularly going to AAAs. It's very difficult to get that right. Obviously, Google, most high profile for us, certainly shut down their AAA studios. Maybe we're seeing why they did that, because they weren't able to get a game that worked with metrics they wanted. Amazon are plugging away. Will it pay off in time? We'll find out. Let's certainly kick the can down the road a bit further now.
Yeah, we'll find out in August anyway with New World. I think with this Lord of the Rings one, I think this was actually not an Amazon Studios sort of issue. It was a more political sort of one, because it was to do with Tencent. Of course, it is absolutely awful news, and quite rightly, Sammy, what you have been saying there with the it needed to be said that this is another Amazon Studios game, and which is being canned basically.
Yeah, it plays into that narrative, much like we'd say with some news on Google. It plays into the narrative of Amazon not being able to get a game out.
Exactly. So I'm really interested to see how New World is doing, and from what I've been seeing out there, it's getting the people seem to be, the hype seems to be going up somewhat. And it's I think we have to keep an eye on it going forward. So Luna news, even though there was no news, we still managed to talk a fair bit about Luna.
A few minutes out of it, yeah.
So what is next? Barry's in charge here. What's next? PlayStation Now. This week on PlayStation Now, there's no news.
Well, they did make an announcement this week. A lot of us seem to think that they were already doing this, and I think they were doing this back in January. But they actually made an official announcement that they are streaming some titles 1080, rather than, I think previously it was only advertised as limited at 720. This is a big step, and it's one of the steps that Sony have needed to make for a while now. I think it's glad that they got up there and are now starting to compete with Xbox and GeForce Now and their cloud gaming, certainly resolution.
Barry, what's your thoughts on this PlayStation Now news, which some of us thought was 1080 already, but they've just confirmed it?
I mean, I think it's the step we've all been asking for, isn't it? It's the step we've all wanted. I think everybody appreciates the value and the library from PS Now. There's so many titles from their mega
like 700.
franchises.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a massive library that you can then go and kind of dip into. So the fact that it's now kind of coming in at what I think people would arguably say the acceptable base rate of 1080. Obviously, I know it's only on supported titles right now, but hopefully we'll kind of see that kind of bumped up across a range of the titles that are in the library. But I think realistically, we all know that 1080 is that sweet spot. That's where we want to be. That's what we want to be seeing. If you can deliver a 1080p stream with a high bit rate, great fidelity, smooth, then that's exactly what you want. So from my perspective, it's certainly a step in the direction, and I think it's also furthered on by Jim Ryan's comments this week, where he's kind of said they're devising a cloud strategy that will be unique, and of course something that is only on PlayStation. So I think that gives PlayStation fans, PlayStation Now fans, something to kind of whet their appetite a bit.
Yep. I think this is a big step what we were talking about, and as Sammy has been demonstrating over the last number of weeks now, you can actually go and play some of the PlayStation big hitters on PlayStation now. Sammy has been playing a game which I think you've got really involved in Detroit.
Involved is probably one way of putting it. It's obviously those of you who played Detroit Become Human or any of the Quantic Dream games, actually, they're very emotionally driven. Detroit Become Human is no different in that respect. It's always, I have to sort of emotionally prepare myself before recording one of them. I think as that has gone on, I think it's starting to get you get more and more invested in the characters. I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, for me, this is the welcome first step. I think we're going to get another step down the line, or later this year when we're going to get the PlayStation 5 games onto it. I think this is the first. There's my big call for PlayStation Now for this year that we're going to get PlayStation 5 games, but I think it's going to be the later half of the year. And
that's some of the later games, or even I keep saying it, the 2016 Ratchet and Clank. For crying out loud, there's more modern games than the 2016 Ratchet and Clank on PlayStation Now, but for some reason that game isn't. Even the previous games in the series, like, get that game on there, please.
Or I think we're going to see them really wrap it up. I think we're going to see something big going on there. And how many games are on PlayStation now? Isn't it close to 800 or something? It's some ridiculous amount.
I think I've read somewhere about 700, which puts everything else in perspective. We keep saying, again, I'm going to mention Xbox Game Pass Ultimate because that's really on my mind at the moment. But that's got something like 200 games. And we keep saying that's a great deal. Obviously, with PlayStation Now, I think the quality of the games is a lot more, let's say, it's lower end games or older games, even going back to PlayStation 2. But that doesn't mean they're bad games. It doesn't mean you still can't enjoy them. For some games, this might be the only way you get to play them now.
Yeah, and there is some banging games there, and I'm going to tell you a game which I've been playing on and off on PlayStation Now is God of War, the God of War series.
Yes.
And I'm not talking the new God of War, I'm talking the old God of War games, and they are on it, like the ones with David Jaffe, who made the first one, and then we've got other ones, the more recent ones. I love the God of War series, and we'll come on to that maybe. We won't tell that story again because we told that story last night when we're going to the GeForce Now one. But PlayStation Now is a sleeping giant out there. And I don't think it's going to be sleeping for much longer because I think they're seeing the hype which Xbox are getting with xCloud. Again, we're going to come to that. And I think we're going to see them be a bit more aggressive with their pushing of that going forward. Do we want to say anything more about PlayStation Now? Or what games, Sammy, from your brief looking at it, what games would you recommend out there if people wanted to get stuck into it?
So obviously, Detroit Become Human is one I've been playing through on our videos on this channel. PS Now also has my favourite video game of all time, which wouldn't surprise too many people to know it's a Ratchet and Clank game. It's Ratchet and Clank: A Crack in Time, which is a lovely little PS3 title. Been really enjoying that. It's got some of the other games in the series, ones that come before and after it in the timeline. But I really recommend that one. It's also got, for those of us that remember when we do them for our Stadia play-alongs, it's got F1 2020, which is a game that we've frequently gone to for our games, for our playthrough. Sorry, I had something on my phone. You distracted my attention.
I'm just showing off the list of the games here which are available. And
Chess Ultra.
Darksiders, Genesis, and War Masters, and Darksiders 3. So you can play through the whole Darksiders series. We might come back to Darksiders. You've got the Destiny Warriors series, Dead or Alive. There's some absolutely big games here, and some really old games. And as Sammy was saying, there is some filler as well. I don't like calling it that, but there is some not so great games. F1 2020. I haven't played it on PlayStation now, but I've downloaded it to my PlayStation, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good on there as well. Have you attempted it yet, Sammy?
Only for about 5 or 10 minutes when I first got the service. There's obviously that's a game I'm familiar with on Stadia, so it's a useful comparison to make, and it's what convinced me that PlayStation Now is legit. I haven't gone through. We've talked about how multiplayer lobbies, they contrast quite a lot between Stadia and PlayStation Now. With PlayStation Now connecting to the actual PlayStation users, you get a lot more lobbies than you do on Stadia currently.
Yeah, there's something I'm going to see. It's always me. I throw curveballs. At the end today, we're going to have a little discussion on where this sort of leaves everything because of all this news because we've had two significant pieces of news. So it's basically just to see where things lie in our minds. And I'm hoping we're all going to have different opinions. That's what I want. I want different opinions. But we're going to go, where do you see the cloud gaming landscape now? And where do you think things are going to go? And it's not going to be anything. It's us. It's meant to be fun and lighthearted and make fun of Barry 100 and stuff like that.
We've got to make fun of that.
Yeah. What should we move on?
Six.
Yeah. Where should we move on to next?
Well, Barry's put the Stadia thing up, so should we talk Stadia?
Yes, we will go Stadia.
Okay. Oh boy.
Okay.
It's been an interesting week for Stadia. I think the phrase I was thinking of earlier, it's been treading water for the majority of this week. I should add, I came up with that comparison before this morning.
Yes.
I think we all know where I'm going with that.
And we will. Shall we start positive or negative? We'll go.
Let's start positive. Let's do a little bit of positive, a little bit.
Why don't we do it if we start at the beginning of the week? The stuff they're announcing back on. Did they announce anything on Monday, or are we going straight in for the Tuesday blog post?
Monday. It's been a pretty quiet week for Stadia. They announced Farming Simulator 2 and Legends of the Keeper coming to. Farming Simulator 2 is coming fall this year, and you'll be able to play multiplayer with it. I know people make fun of this game. I'm one of the people who make fun of this game, and it's good that there's a late 2021 game coming to Stadia, and it was going to have a big multiplayer lobby, and Farming Simulator is actually a big game. We also
it is a series that's already been on Stadia. it's not a direct sequel. Obviously, was it Farming Simulator 19? That's how it was.
Yeah,
So it's not a direct sequel, but it is the second game in that franchise.
Yes, it's they skipped a year. I think it's for the next gen, and the second game was Legend of the Keepers, and which is coming out the 29th, so next week. I thought it was okay. I was going. I think a buy ball because they've had a stunning couple of weeks. They had a 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row where
they've had a good run.
Yep. And then we move into the interesting sort of stuff. There is a story which is basically a non-story, or sorry, a story because it's a non showing up in MotoGP 21.
Well, if we talk about if you have a non-story that broke over the evening.
Oh, we're coming to that. We're coming to that. MotoGP 21 is a game which was on Stadia last year, or MotoGP 20. So the next installment is not coming. We'll start with Barry. What is your thoughts on this? And be bad and evil and.
That's your job.
I'm going to be brutally honest. I am not surprised. Now, whilst I feel like the game has a place, and I think we were talking about last night, maybe on the green room, possibly. MotoGP keeps getting made year after year. So there is a space for it. There's a market for it. Personal opinion, it's very niche because it's not a kind of case that if you like racing games, you'll like MotoGP, because I think MotoGP is a very different kettle of fish in comparison to the other titles such as F1, the Crew, your Forzas, your Gran Turismos. It's in a kind of different ballpark. And I just see it as a way of the fact that MotoGP 20 never had a sale. It was priced at £50. And so if we talk about Stadia as an emerging platform, we know that it's going to have a smaller player base than everything else. So what you're expecting is to pick up 1 or 2 fish in a very small pond, whereas on the other platforms, you can go fishing and you're probably going to pick up, a number of fish because there may be more niche players that are playing Xbox, PlayStation, and PC. So to me, whilst I appreciate the fact that from an optics perspective, it doesn't look great that a sequel's not come to the platform. I think it's a very niche title. Clearly didn't do that well. They didn't want to kind of put any support into it in terms of putting a sale onto it. So therefore, the logical conclusion is, well, we just won't bring the next game. And I think that's it from my perspective.
I think based on that, you have to wonder why they brought MotoGP 2020 to the platform. It's difficult not to construct a narrative where games like that are trying to bring up the multiplayer, bring up the user base on these platforms, and it's not worked to the extent they wanted to. Either it's not brought up the MotoGP niche, or it's not brought up the player base in general. Let's simplify and say it's not brought up the MotoGP niche because you can't prove anything else otherwise. But, they haven't helped it, I don't think, by not putting a sale on it. If MotoGP 2020 had a sale on, I would have bought the game, at least have a look. But I wasn't going to be someone that dropped full price on that game. So it wasn't helped by perhaps the developers and publishers. And I think in the end, maybe in future we didn't see Farming Simulator 2020 or 2021 come to the platform, but we are seeing 22. Maybe we see MotoGP come back to Stadia a few years down the line. I hope so, but certainly at this point, amongst the backdrop of particularly F1 2021 not being announced for Stadia, it doesn't look great.
Yeah, I'm going to probably be a bit harsh here. Just to say something, Sammy, this is just a wee slight correction.
Okay.
Farming Simulator skipped a year. So they did. They already said they were just going to put extra DLC out for Farming Simulator 19. So they were just skipping because I think they were trying to get geared up for the next gen consoles or the
Fair enough.
current ones. It is a worrying trend. This is the second game which we now know hasn't come to Stadia, which is a direct sequel. The first one being Football Manager 2021. And I don't think people in the UK and Europe realize how big Football Manager is. I think people maybe in the States don't realize how big of a game this is. This game is an absolute institution, and this game actually influences football clubs. Actual football clubs look at some of the data from Football Manager and implement that. To put that into some sort of context, football is the biggest sport in the world, soccer. We'll use soccer.
Have they implemented the European Super League in Football Manager?
You can do that. It's one of the mods, I think. You'll be able to do that. This would be like Madden using the data from Madden for football, for American football. This game is absolutely massive. It has a massive following, and when people play this game, people really, really play that game. We're talking hundreds of hours, if not thousands of hours, over the lifetime of the game, which is, and most people get it either yearly or they get it every 2 years, sort of thing. This is a worry with MotoGP as well. This is the second annual franchise going here. This does not breathe confidence in the platform. And Phil, I just realized what you were talking about as well, Sammy. We've got a lot to talk about. And it is just a complete another worry there. And the Zero Games for me said as well, this is off the back of the SG&E closures where they were going to back a lot of games going forward. And that's what the thinking was. We were going to make sure games were coming. And if you miss out on annual franchises, it is something to worry about. I am not too concerned about MotoGP not coming because, as I think everybody's put here, no one seems to have bought the game. And if no one buys a game, they're not going to bring it. It is just an optics for Stadia. And it's a big if at the moment, if F1 2021 does not come to Stadia, that is an absolutely massive talking point. And there's no way to sugarcoat that because I would just ask the people in the chat to go have a look at Twitch. And if you type in Twitch, you look up Madden and then do a Twitch search for F1 2020, there is a massive difference in the player watching hours and stuff like that. F1 2020 is a big serious.
An interesting point from Raf in the chat.
Yep.
Sorry to bring that in.
You can bring it up there.
So if the game already has a following, the hardcore players aren't going to jump to where they're currently playing it to somewhere else.
Yeah, but
I guess that makes sense. But if that is the point, why would they bring MotoGP 20 to the platform?
Yeah,
to put that back onto the franchise we're talking about.
Yeah, what I would also say to that, I think Rafa is a brilliant point. This is what I want. I want points like this. What I would also counter that with that, if F1 2020 or F1 2021 does not come to the platform, we have a sizable, for Stadia, we have a sizable racing community out there, and we've got the Stadia Racing, someone correct me, you know what I'm like, I forget the name.
SRC.
SRC.
The SRC, Hell Monkey's part of that as well. There has been a number of people in the SRC have said if it doesn't come, I've seen the Discord, I've seen things on Twitter as well, that if that game does not come, they are going to look at getting a different place to play it. And that may be console, that may be PC, it may be some other way of doing it through Shadow or whatever, just to continue that. If you don't have if you put an annual series on, you really need to continue the annual series to sow them seeds, because if F1 doesn't come, and I know MotoGP here is a small title, I think there'll be like no one in the multiplayer lobbies, but if you take that title off, the seeds aren't going to grow. It's a long-term plan, and you have to plant these seeds, and you have to be willing to take the monetary hit. They should be out there bringing these ports of these annual franchises to Stadia to start building the fruits of that up. It's going to take years to do that, and if you cut them, you put one on one year and one off the other year, then maybe one on, then one off, you're
going to stunt the growth. You've got to keep watering those seeds.
Yeah, exactly. And that is the
we're not dying when the games come. They are popular. F1 2020 has been one of our favourite games. It won one of our Cloud Gaming Awards. We've done multiple player longs on it. Stadia GP. It's in Stadia terms, I think it's a very successful game. I have to phrase that correctly. I
think if you look at racing games in general on Stadia, they've proved tremendously popular. If you look at Grid, obviously vast majority of people would have had that at some point, on Pro, and some would have paid, like myself, to kind of pay the upgrade fee.
Day one title for me.
Well, exactly. There we go. And and again, we had a lot of fun with it on our play alongs. When we first started them, Grid was a real big go-to. F1, obviously, as you've mentioned, the Crew 2. The Crew 2's been kind of, I would say, really popular. Not just obviously on Stadia. It's a popular title. So I think it's kind of clear to see that the people that have invested in Stadia so far are all having some enjoyment from that racing title genre. And I think that's, personally for me, that's why I do want to see them make sure that those kind of things do continue to come. Obviously, we've just had Dirt 5. That's literally in the space of just over 12 months. That's 3 Codemasters games. And I know, obviously, Duncan, you're talking about F1 2021, which obviously Codemasters, but obviously EA buyout, all that sort of stuff, the crossover, there's kind of a little bit of kind of muddied waters there, but I think it kind of speaks for itself in the Trials Fusion as well. Again, that involves specifically bikes only, but it's a very different kind of game to MotoGP, and again, it's proved popular. People have enjoyed it, so I think it is something that it's a genre that we can't forget, and we do need to make sure that we keep growing, because we clearly have a very captive audience who are receptive to racing games on Stadia.
Yeah, that is the point. It's Ralph, I hope we've explained this to just to counter what we've all got slightly different sort of takes on it, but I hope that sort of explains to you what our thinking is here. It's you have to invest for the long term. Yes, I've seen the comments here. This is why getting into gaming is hard, and there's different ways of doing it. If you go back to the Microsoft example, when they actually made the original Xbox, they knew they were going to take major financial pain until it took off, and they were making sure that the games were coming to it, and that's why you have to dig into your pockets and bring the games to it. This isn't me defending Luna. Luna is a completely and utterly different beast. They are going subscription. That is Netflix. They are going slow. I want them to speed up. I want them to bring a load more games, and I just have a feeling that there is something going to pop there, and when that pops, they are going to go all in, and it's going to be interesting. It is a concern that these annual titles are not coming back, because it is growing the seeds. Stadia have to pay for the ports. I have went out and slagged Stadia off for paying for the ports. I think they've overpaid for them by all accounts, but I'm not going to slag them off for actually putting their hands into their wallets and going, there you go, we want this game. This is what they need to be doing, and they need to be doing this on a consistent basis. And this F1 or the GP 20 is seems to be a strange choice to start off with, if that was a paid for port. But it just does not. It's not a great look. I just hope we are going to get more of the annual series going forward. And for me, the big bellwether is going to be the Take-Two games. If we do not see the next golf game or the next NBA game, I think Stadia is probably in serious hot water. If it isn't already, sorry, should have stopped there. But that is again. This is just my opinion. Everybody's got an opinion. Duncan, your opinion's wrong. That's absolutely fine. But that is my opinion. If them two games do not come along with F1, I think we're going to have a serious conversation about where Stadia is heading. And touch wood, I am hopeful that FIFA and Madden are going to be coming, and if they come day one and with cross-platform, which is the hope going forward for EA titles, that could be a saving grace for them if they market it well. If they market it well, which there's a point we're going to come to shortly. Well, Sammy, was your point here the Cyberpunk stuff? Or was it
I made a reference to the Cyberpunk stuff. Obviously, there was a CD Projekt Red call where they were asked about Stadia sales, and the guy, it's being interpreted as a laugh, and that's then being taken as a laugh, as he's laughing at Stadia. Stadia's a joke. I don't see it that way at all. The question was a legitimate one. The report they put out was PC and Stadia sales were lumped in together to make the pie chart. So it wasn't clear how much was on PC, how much was on Stadia. So it's a legitimate question, trying to work out exactly what was going on. The other thing, it's trying to think of exactly the right way to word this. So, CD Projekt Red is a Polish studio. English isn't necessarily their first language, so it's that laugh can be a pause trying to work out exactly the right way they want to say things. I don't believe that should then be. We should then take that, go tweeting, writing articles, and panicking, and this is another example of Stadia having the what is it called? It's the small battered community syndrome. Everything that happens that's remotely to do with Stadia is seen as either an attack on Stadia or massively pro Stadia. I think that was just a genuine answer to a genuine question with a small hesitation beforehand. To be honest, I think I've talked about it far too much. My speech just then is probably about 5 times longer than the sentence he answered the question with.
I would be inclined to agree, Sammy. I think there's also probably an element of if it was a laugh, let's say it was, you can imagine it being how do I answer this one, because I know that I'm not allowed to actually answer the question. So let me just make a bit of a gestured noise, which, had you have seen him rather than hearing it, you might have maybe kind of been able to pick up body language and read those. There's a lot of context that is lost. And let's be honest, everybody out there wants to try and get to the bottom of what the player base is on Stadia, how many people will have bought it, because the stuff really, whilst people...
It's a single player game at the moment. The multiplayer option isn't coming for another year or so now.
I get that, but I think ultimately anybody out there in a journalistic sense or in those kind of settings want to understand actually how well has your game sold on the platform, because that could be something that another developer could be listening to. Tell me, how much has it sold on Stadia? Is it worth my time, me bringing on another 5 or 6 techies to go and smash some code out and put the port together and make sure that it's on Stadia? Has it done well enough to make it financially viable for me as a developer or me as a publisher to bring the game? So I think I get the point. It's a single player game. Why do you want to know how much it's sold? Absolutely. But I think there are indicators there where people in the industry, whether it be from a journalistic sense or from something else, they want to understand what the level of the player base is. Because if you ask Google, there is no answer. We don't want to confirm player numbers. And everybody's automatic suspicion in that is we don't want to confirm player numbers because they're low. Well, long story short, Google have already said that they missed their targets for last year. So the player base is sub where their expectations were. That's probably as much confirmation as we're ever going to get as to what the player numbers are. And I think in that sense, when they were in that scenario, they want to understand, was it, is it a constructive marketing move? Is it something that was done very early to make sure that they didn't have to put a piece of the pie that showed 1% of sales was Stadia, because then that becomes another look at that.
Yeah,
they've only sold 1% of the game.
Does become a Stadia
so when it's bundled in, and not only that, I believe in there they did say on launch of the title that the version of Cyberpunk that Stadia got was effectively the PC version. So there's some. Whilst I know everybody's made a big furore about, and we've just spoken for 2-3 minutes on it, at least.
Yeah, this is the irony of it. Yeah.
And I think the one thing I do want to say, and I know I've seen this out a few times on social media today, I don't think any of us are sitting here expecting that out of that piece of the pie of those 13.7 million copies that they sold in 2020, I don't think anybody either in the community, whether they look favorably or negatively on Stadia, or any of us here are sitting here with an expectation that it's going to compete with Steam, because it's clearly not. Because if you look at Steam as an outlet, let's be if we look at it,
Steam is worldwide.
Well, I was just going to say Steam is worldwide, and to follow that up, how many of those people bought it on Steam have played it on GeForce Now because they wanted RTX and they didn't have hardware? So there's kind of there's a great deal of disparity there anyway, because it kind of dilutes across multiple platforms anyway.
My take on it, I think this is just as Sammy said, bother Stadia or bother community syndrome here. I think it was a bit of a joke. There was a bit of a giggle. Depending on where you sit on the fence, you could say that's them giggling at how low the numbers are, or it is giggling because they didn't want to answer the question. But I think it's a storm in the teacup, and it is wanting to defend Stadia no matter what at all. And with that, I want to say I think combining the PC and Stadia ones together was the right decision, because if Stadia needed to be about 5%, and I think Stadia would have been on there, because of that is a reasonable sort of amount there, and that was as a respectable amount. As Rafa said in the chat, my feeling is Stadia is well under 1%. I think it is under 1% of the sales, and it is just a blip in that, and it would have made things 100 times worse. The reason why they laugh at Stadia is because, I will be frank, Stadia is a laughing joke to most of the gaming community out there. It is a running joke, and Stadia do not help themselves, as we're just about to come on to. I'll speak for me, but I'm thinking this is the same for you guys as well. When I'm critical on Stadia, it is because I want Stadia to do so well. I want it to be the best it can be, and you just see it slip up time and time and time again, and it is just so frustrating to see. And
the potential for Stadia is massive.
Yes, it is.
I think no one will disagree with it. Even people who Stadia, the potential for it is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Are they executing that to the best of their abilities? I think the majority of us would probably agree again. No.
Which brings us to today. I
was a shock this morning, I've got to admit.
I am just sitting here. I just got a hell of a lot of work to do today. I was really tempted to make up a quick 20-second video to go, this is what you should have put out. Stadia has an exclusive feature for Judgment. Stadia is the only place you can play it on PC. Just let that sink in, and there is a big PC audience out there as well. It is priced at a reasonable price point, and it has the exclusive feature in Stadia. Come and play. It's Yakuza. I'm pretty sure it's Yakuza. Is it set in the Yakuza series, isn't it? Come play.
That's video. Yeah.
Come play Yakuza in a completely and utterly different way. 10 seconds, bang. Plaster that everywhere, put it on Twitter. Look, you can play Yakuza on PC. Oh, and you've got the Stadia. What's the Stadia? Oh, I can send my levels to my mates. Brilliant! Why aren't you showing it off to everybody? It's like, come on.
This is something which they did put out a special blog post, I think midweek or not on a Tuesday, to announce the game was coming to Stadia in the first place. I'm fairly certain this was a special blog post to that. So this is clearly a game that they value coming to Stadia enough to put out its own special blog post.
And they still haven't mentioned it in their flipping tweet today that it's got Stadia.
No, they tweeted out today saying there's only 4 games with Stadia in. It's the 3 Hitman series and Pixel Junk Raiders, and they still haven't acknowledged. I honestly don't understand. It's a great thing it's got Stadia. But the marketing is it's flat out wrong. It's wrong.
I have been on record so many times. If you want to go back and use the receipts, which I hate, I have been talking about Stadia since Stadia was announced back at GDC at the original, and the other people that picked up on it this week have said, sure, Slay the Spire Stadia, Football Manager with Stadia. Could you imagine Football Manager with Stadia? Come play my level. I'm bottom.
Any sports game with Stadia.
And then we've got. You need to advertise your product, and you need to boast what you have got there. Because every time there's an Xbox post, they are boasting to high heaven. You can play this game X, Y, and Z, whatever. And as Rafa said as well, this is what really, really frustrates me, because that game there.
That's true. They haven't.
They haven't talked about that. That transforms that game. You put crowd play, you put crowd choice, you put Stadia into games. They completely make these games brand new and give them a brand new lease of life. And you can sell that. That is easy to sell. You can just go out there and go there. They get someone on like Luna's been doing. Luna have been targeting
Ruben, that example is exactly what sold me on Stadia.
Yes.
Racing games, you get a puncture. You're at the start of the lap, you get a puncture. You're going to drive around the lap to get to the pits, change your tires, get out, win the race. It's brilliant. The possibilities are absolutely endless with Stadia.
This is why I've been so frustrated. And I just see it's Stadia's peeing against the wall here and not giving a flying one. And they've got all this technology and so many things they can actually do to actually sell Stadia to the absolute masses. And it's just sitting there and not being used, not being marketed, and it is just being. If Microsoft had Stadia in their games for cloud, what do you think they would be doing? They would be come play Slay the Spire, go into Slay the Spire in the cloud, and you've got Stadia. You can jump in and play with your favorite YouTubers or streamers. There you go, there's the link. This is they're wasting and not marketing one of the key products on Stadia. which can actually sell the service to millions upon millions upon millions of gamers out there, and they're hiding it behind there, and just it's like a dirty secret. And as someone said here, it was on one of the tweets, we don't want to talk about Fight Club. It's like Fight Club, you don't want to talk about Fight Club. You're not.
Yes, I saw that tweet. Yeah.
The first rule of Stadia is you don't talk about Stadia. That seems to be their marketing plan at the moment, and it is just real frustrating, because we all know that Stadia works, and Stadia has the potential to absolutely push things. And the thing is, I'm telling you now, we're going to see state share on Luna. We've already seen the start of that. We're going to see it in Xcloud. We're going to see it in PlayStation, and they are going to sell that to high heaven. And Stadia is sitting on that feature right now, and they could be out there really showcasing this and pulling people in. Okay, these two yap about it now. I've done enough yapping.
I've done my bit. Barry's been quiet for a while. I'm wondering.
I just thought I'd let you guys kind of say what had to be said. I mean, I'm not really sure there's much more that I can add to kind of labour that point. You know, at the end of the day, if you've got something, tell the world that you've got it. It's what makes the difference, you know, and it's what attracts people to platforms. It's what attracts people to buy shiny things, you know. Although, you know, look at Duncan this week for a prime example. He's watched the Apple, the Apple show this week, and he's come away with it with a shopping list, because it's not just about showing them a product in in a physical shape. It's about showing you what it can do, and that's why he now wants to spend his money on it, because they've actually said, well, look, this is what we can do. And I do firmly believe, from a platform that has an extremely solid base in terms of its capabilities and is an exceptionally good platform, it does feel do you know what, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Yes, I know there are general engineering. You know, I know we've spoken about the fact that some platforms are built by gamers, some platforms are built by kind of engineers, this, that, and the other, right? Going to go out on a limb and say that the people steering the ship are letting the engineers down. So every dev agreement, every publisher agreement, every engineer working on that tech to make it the best goddamn thing on the planet is being let down by the people who are making the decisions. Ultimately, it's not being let down by me. It's not being let down by you or anybody else on Twitter or anybody else out there. It's being let down by the people that are leading the let's call it an organization or a division. The engineers, the amount of work they've put in to bring those features, for them to just go unmentioned or as a throwaway comment or that sort of stuff, from my perspective, I think is almost borderline insulting to the amount of work that they put in to create something that changes the way that we game.
I'm going to throw this back. I think just to twist slightly what you said there. I think the problem.
Don't be twisting my words.
I will be twisting your words. I'm making them my own. I think the problem for Stadia is they're led by the engineers and not led by the gamers. They've got the engineers are the ones pushing everything, and they're not big gamers, and they don't know the gaming space, because that is my thing, because they're not doing gamey sort of things. If you compare it to the other companies out there, they get gaming, and it just doesn't feel that the people in the mood music coming from Stadia isn't gamers sort of related. If you want to compare it, we'll compare it to Luna, which broadly similar. I'm saying here, when they're doing their marketing campaigns, they are targeting the gamers who play the games, and then they have a longer term sort of things. We've got sort of thing going on there, and you can see that with IAM branding and things like that. And they've got like the Rainbow Six streamer in doing Rainbow Six streams. Well, Google seems to be, oh, this person seems to be a big name, we'll grab them in, and then you don't see them again. Where there seems to be longer lasting relationships with Luna. I just hope we're going to see a change there, and they get someone with a proper gaming pedigree in there, so they can go there and actually drive Stadia forward. Because Sammy, I'm just going to take your thing. For me, even with all these good news stories coming out, for me, I just feel like Stadia is treading water, and I think they've been treading water since they've launched. I think we're getting half
take everything into consideration. Yes, I think so.
It's like when things come out, they're usually half baked, and it takes then another 2 or 3 months for things to settle down. We'll talk about State Share. When that came out with Hitman 3, I think that was an absolute shame, and it completely deflated me because it was a wrong game and it was like just shoehorned into it. But now we've got a game with State Share launching, and it hasn't been told by Stadia yet. Come on, get your fingers out. Oh, we've actually got a question here, which I think is an absolutely great sort of question here. Again, you don't have to answer if you don't want to. Do you guys believe Stadia is simply a side project for Google?
I'll let Sammy go first.
I believe it is a side project for Google, but I believe it's a side project in the same way that the Google Assistant is, or certainly Google Assistant was back in the day when it was first announced and first being trialed. Everyone looks at it and thinks, wow, this is actually quite good. I can see its uses, as long as they can get the technology working, talking to the right bits. And now you're talking about, Google AI can now phone up hairdressers and book appointments for you. They're using the real-time language understanding. So yes, it is a side project, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be abandoned. But that means, it's not their full attention. But I don't think that's unusual for Google.
Yeah, I just realized something there, but should we do it now before Barry, you'll talk, then I will talk about it, then I will add the other thing in at the end.
Okay. Yeah. I kind of side. I don't know. I think it started as an additional service to their portfolio. Not going to call it necessarily a side product. I'm going to call it an additional service to their portfolio. But what I will say is, I have been left beyond no reasonable doubt in the last, probably, I'm going to say the last few months. Google are not interested. Google thought they could do something quickly, but I don't think, and somebody came to them with a great idea and said, we want to do this. And, they've gone and kind of put some of the pieces in place. And I don't think they've followed through with everything that they kind of set out. I also don't necessarily, and I think this is probably a big criticism, and I fully accept I'm maybe not in the position to make it. I don't think that they did their market research properly. If you're starting a new business or a new service, you go out and you do your market research properly, because you need to know who your competitors are, what they've got, what they're going to do to you, what it's going to look like, what the landscape looks like. And if they did it, I don't think they did their due diligence well enough, and it's got them to a point where actually I don't think Google are interested. I think Stadia is standing on one leg. I don't want to say 2 feet, but it's standing on one leg on its own, trying to support itself. And the powerhouse that is there, who could actually step in and put a big arm around it and give it a little bit of a hug and make it something that people like, seems to be distancing themselves and stepping them. That was magic, Duncan. Stepping aside.
I know exactly what he's done.
That's not even mine. I don't like it.
Was he right? Was it?
Yeah, I think it is a side project, and I think that it's a side project which has been. It's just going to sound a bit weird, and it's a side project which has been not funded enough, even though we've seen some of these big, massive deals of the leaked value, like the Resident Evil one. That may seem a hell of a lot of money, but if you're going to get a break into the gaming industry, you're talking billions to get brought into it. And I know that they've got the infrastructure in the cloud and using their servers and all that, but it always comes back to the games. And this is what one of my favorite things I used to say is I just feel like Stadia is in love with the tech and they've forgotten about the games. And it just needs to, I think that you really need to, I think we're going to find out in the next couple of months where they need to just come out. They need something big, because they have came out and said they're competing with consoles, while the other cloud services are not competing with consoles. They are a add-on, and that includes Luna. Luna is also being marketed as, we're not going after consoles. This is just a side thing. You can join us if you want, sort of thing. xCloud is, I think it's very clear in their messaging. They're just saying that they are going 100% in the cloud, and we can see that. But their messaging, we're just doing this as you can just play this everywhere. So I think we are approaching a critical time for Stadia, unfortunately, and I think we need to see some big moves. If F1 doesn't come, and if one of the Take-Two games do not come in the basketball or the PGA, I think they are going to be showing their cold feet, and that is going to be a massive worry. And if you asked me 6 months ago, maybe over 6 months ago, I thought GTA was a pretty much guaranteed to come to Stadia. I do not think it is now. And when the next gen versions drop, I think we're going to have a eye to see if it actually comes to Stadia. I know that is absolutely, what's it, 3 or 4, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. So it's a 3-generation game. If that does not come, I think that's going to be a big one. That's going to be a big massive miss. The thing I was going to come back with, and I completely forgot about this too, and I think this happened this week. Monster Boy has state share. Was that announced?
Yep. State share? I thought that was crowd choice.
I think it's both.
I know it's got crowd choice because Jem was streaming it on Monday, I think. And he wasn't the only one. He's just the only one coming off the top of my head.
It's got both state share and crowd choice.
Yeah. And
they go, even we're forgetting it.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the position where Stadia is in compared to the other platforms. Every game matters in Stadia. Not every game matters on the other platforms. That may sound a bit bonkers. Every game coming to Stadia is a massive event. Every game going to Xbox and PlayStation is not a massive event. And listen, I am being completely fair here as well. Every game going to Luna is a massive event as well at this moment in time. That's just the way it is. Every game should be getting a big, massive focus on Stadia. And it should not, again, I'm just going to call it out here, it should not be between 9 o'clock Pacific time to 5 o'clock Pacific time. You are over here in Europe as well. You need to have the ball moving as well, because if you look at Xbox and PlayStation announcements, they start kicking off at 1 o'clock UK time, 2 o'clock UK time. There's not 5 o'clock, 6 o'clocks, and 8 o'clocks. You need to have a worldwide sort of presence. And this gives you opportunity to drop these blog posts out and just explaining the state share and all these different features going forward. The reason why
is this your pitch to become Stadia UK community manager?
I would be awesome at that, wouldn't I? I think everybody in the community would absolutely love if I became a community. again, the reason why we are, or I am so passionate about Stadia, and you may think I'm negative all the time, but I'm not, is because I just want it to do so well. There's just so much there and so much great stuff there, and it's just being up against the wall.
Squandered.
Well, I think it's also fair to say, before I know we do want to kind of crack on, but I think it's fair to say at this point that you are this passionate about it and about kind of talking about these things objectively because you've been through the pain of having a platform that you adored that was taken away from you because it was maybe ahead of its time. Let's be honest, it might have been ahead of its time, but you've gone through that exercise. You know what it feels like to kind of feel invested and feel like it's something that you want to put time and energy and spend it. And then you've had it kind of ripped away because it wasn't successful, and you simply don't want to see something else of a similar stature make exactly the same mistake. I think that's where a lot of your point comes from. Tell me if I'm wrong, but that's just my opinion. That's how I see it.
Yes, the similarities between, I'm going to give two, and you're going to hate what I'm going to say, the similarities between Stadia and OnLive and Ouya, yes, I mentioned Ouya, are really, really stark. If you actually see what was going on in there, the OnLive ones are just so apparent. It is unreal. It's every game coming as a success, and everybody's against. It's like a siege mentality where everything is against each other, and it's just so frustrating to watch out there. It's the same games coming to Stadia that were coming to OnLive. You get the occasional big hitter, but it's mainly the indie titles. You have some Ubisoft were a big supporter of OnLive as well. And the thing about the Ouya is some of the Kickstarter game, because that what everybody was going on with Ouya was if they mentioned the Kickstarter and it had Ouya, everybody was jumping on that as well. It's just so utterly frustrating out there that we're just seeing this, and I do not want Stadia to die, but it's just making itself such an easy target for why you can see the train going that way.
Indeed. Should we move on, gentlemen?
Yes,
I think so. I think it's Stadia for the week.
On a positive side, when this show ends, we are going to be doing our Stadia predictions for what pro games are coming, and that is just a fun and lighthearted thing where we talk nice and positively about Stadia.
Indeed. No, I don't think we were too bashful this evening. I think we were relatively fair. Might have been critical, but fair, I think. Okay. Should we go this direction? Because I think you said leave xCloud till last. So we're heading in the direction of GFN.
I just realized the time. We do.
We do. As normal, we end up with a lot of stuff to talk about Stadia, even though there might not have been too much going on. It's just we end up.
I just want to say, Norma, we see your comments. We're not ignoring it. We've just got so much going on here. We just love talking and we love interacting with everybody out there. So we're not ignoring everybody there, and Endeavour as well. I think that's just a great point before we just move on to GFN. It's everybody else seems to be learning, and unfortunately, Stadia keeps on making the same mistakes over and over and over again. GFN, I think I can wrap this up nice and quick if we're going to push for time, but I don't think it's right that we condense it. But I think it's been another amazingly strong. It's been another strong week. Consistency. Well,
yeah, I think we say it week in, week out is another 10, 12, 15 this week. Games are coming to GeForce Now. More options to buy some of the games you had day one, Uplay Plus. are now available on Steam as well. It's just another solid week. Hopefully, I think next week we'll get the monthly press release with looking forward to all the stuff that's coming in May. So it'll be a bit more news, a bit more stuff to talk about then. But again, solid week.
Yeah, I would agree.
No,
I would agree. I mean, I think they've got a nice, a consistent number of games again, which have been over that 10 threshold. And then we've also got, DLC for the Warhammer Vermintide and obviously the Lost Gods DLC, which I guess it's a good time as ever to kind of point out that on Thursdays we do go through GFN Thursdays in kind of quite great depth. So kind of, if you do want to kind of check that out in more depth, you can obviously catch that on there.
Yeah, again, we do go in depth in every single one of them games. What's the name of the game again? I just forgot the name. But
Turnip Boy does tax evasion. I remember because it's a tax evasion game. For some reason, that's the one that's drawn your attention.
Yes, of course, because I'm learning off you, Sammy. And we will.
He lives in Ireland.
Yeah.
Northern Ireland. Oh, fine.
With this, again, GFN consistency is key going forward. You know what you're going to get with GFN, and we're talking double figures every single week now. And it is brilliant to see that. And we touched on this last night. I'll recommend, if you're into GFN, go to that, because we go absolutely bananas with all the stuff. It's some weeks you're going to have nothing on the list. I will be frank, and there might be 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row where you'll get nothing, and then there could be a run where you get 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks where you want every game on the list. The thing is, they are bringing the games week in, week out, and eventually there will be games for you if there isn't already games on the platform for you. The amount of games is just unreal. Me and Hell Monkey discussed this a couple of weeks ago. We are talking probably close to 100 free-to-play games on GFN now, which is great to see as well. They just need to keep it going.
Exactly. Consistency. And
I'm going to ask you a question here. It's just going back to, should Stadia be more open? Yeah, this is the question I'm going to ask, and this is why they should be all open. How many people are users? I'm just saying users. I'm not saying paying customers. Users of GFM.
Well, the figures that's been thrown around is 10 million.
Yeah. And that's why.
But even the fact that we have a number we can answer that with is kind of proving your point.
Exactly, and that was the point. And when we come on to Game Pass here, we can say how many people have signed up to Game Pass as well. Mm-hmm. It just breeds confidence.
Mm.
Yes. Shall I switch it up? Are we done with GFN?
Yeah. Please go watch our GFM video, our GFM videos. There's one which is about 10 minutes where we just do a quick recap, and there's one closer to an hour where we go into a hell of a lot more detail. So there'll be one for each of you. Oh, xCloud, was that me?
Yeah,
I've done it. I'm there. I'm on it.
Yeah, yes, it's me speaking.
Shut yourselves in, folks. Yeah.
xCloud. It's awful because I still haven't been given my flipping one yet. It's so unfair.
It's when I get mine later tonight and you still haven't got yours.
I'm going to say this. I wonder if it's because I'm based over here, and they're putting it in different locations, and they're trying to balance it up or somewhat, because we've got like 3 or 4 accounts here and none of us have it.
I thought you said one of you. Okay.
Oh no, we did it. We thought Kelly thought she got one, but no, it wasn't. It was one of them trick ones where it looked like it was. But the xCloud is now available on browser and on iOS, and I think this is great news. It is. I'm going to be frank here. The reviews I'm getting out there, what I've been saying, I think the first day was a disaster. A lot of people were having issues because I think everybody was jumping on it at once. And similar to what sort of Stadia, they had issues during their first swing. But since that, it seems to have settled down. From what I'm seeing, there's been a lot of positivity about it, and it's a lot better than the beta, which was on the Android. Seems to be a common sort of consensus, and some people are saying it is actually great for them. And the amount of games is just unreal on it. Shall we go to the person who's actually got it, or the person who wants to get it?
Suppose I better go. So I'm the one that hasn't got it. Just to clarify that, I haven't actually played any of the Xbox Game Pass games because I didn't have Game Pass Ultimate until I think during my lunch break today. I bought it. Took advantage of the £1 for the first month. I have a PC that's not super powered, but is capable enough to run most games reasonably well. Was going to download one of the Forza games. I think it was Forza Horizon 4. And then I realised that with the EA Play subscription you also get through Game Pass Ultimate, I had access to a game I wanted to try out on PC or indeed on my Switch, perhaps, in the remastered edition of Burnout Paradise. So I've been playing through that after work. I decided not to come up during work and have a sneaky race on it. But a game I thoroughly enjoyed playing on PlayStation 3 back in the day, being able to play it on PC. Not sure that's available through xCloud when that goes on, because the way it works is Game Pass Ultimate has access to a lot of games, whereas the game streaming is a slightly more limited library.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
I think you've still got a very good selection of games, including stuff like Outriders, that was day and date on xCloud. F1 2020 PS. Now F1 2019 is xCloud. Football Manager xCloud.
Football Manager is on Game Pass, but it's not on xCloud.
Not on xCloud. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm considering he's just said it, I'm fully expecting to get my invite before Duncan, even though I've only just signed up. But either way, I feel committed. It's first. Yeah, I'll start again. For your first month of Game Pass Ultimate, it's £1. I figured that's worth it. If it doesn't come in that 1 month, then okay, I'll do another £10.99 to subscribe if I still want to play some of the games. Otherwise, I'll hold out a bit longer.
Yeah. I guess that
Barry, how is it? Yeah,
that leaves it to me being the one person on the panel that's got it, doesn't it? No, it's. I think I would agree with what Duncan was saying. Well, I mean, I didn't have it day one. I kind of fell into the day two kind of run of invites. Obviously, my first impressions were certainly it was better than kind of, from what I remember in trying the beta on Android. I'd noticed a bit of an improvement in kind of load time in comparison to kind of some of the Android, playing some of the titles on Android. Obviously, I think my first day, I noticed quite a bit of artifacting, particularly Dirt 5. It was my go-to to jump into, because I know I've played it on console, so I was really intrigued to see what it was like on xCloud. And whilst it played really smooth, it felt good to play it. There was quite a bit of, you could see that kind of, you could tell it was being streamed. There was kind of a little bit of a break in the, in the picture. And being as somebody who's, when I was playing it, as always on my PC up here, 1 gig connection, hardwired. So my internet connection is not a slouch by any means. So to kind of see that little bit of degradation of quality purely in a visual sense, I was like, oh, okay, it's a little bit rough around the edges. It needs some work. But then I have to say, jumped in yesterday briefly during the green room and then a little bit after. And the performance does seem to, there's something has happened, whether it be the servers have stabilized, whatever, something's clearly happened because the performance does seem to have kind of taken itself up a knock. But it's, I think we worked it out from what Ashley said, didn't we? There are 217 games at the moment available. So you've got stuff like Outriders, which is on there, MLB The Show 21, which obviously the big one that everybody was talking about because it's a Sony title. You can play it on console, you can play it on the cloud. Absolutely brilliant. You've got a really good selection of what you can kind of dive into and what you can play. So I'm really looking forward to spending more time with it. It started well, obviously a little bit rocky on day one, as I say, but I'm looking forward to kind of having some proper time, like I would normally with console or with Stadia or GFM, where you can sit down and kind of go through a good 2-3 hours at least and kind of get a real feel for what the experience is like. So I'll hopefully be in a better position to talk even more about that next week.
Sounds promising. I'm looking forward to eventually getting it. I'm just sitting here going, give me it. No, and I think there's a fair number of people in the similar boat. I was going to do a talking point at the end. Do you think we should leave the talking point, or should we do the talking point, or save it to next week?
How relevant is it this week?
I guess the risk of saving it to next week is either it's not as relevant.
It will be relevant next week. It is talking about the comparison between all the different the business models and the value propositions and stuff like that, and going through the buying option versus subscription and just the overall package sort of thing. So we could probably come back to that.
I wonder if we can't do it next week, we'll try and arrange some time to do a special discussion around that, because that could be a long discussion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's okay. That's everything, isn't it?
We've covered it all.
Shadow's not got a buyer yet, has it? So
that is it. So what I would say is, if you want more Stadia stuff, we are just about to go on. I would say give us 15 minutes. Would that be fine, or would you want to do it straight away?
I don't mind. I've got my predictions ready to go. So
it's more, do you want to grab a comfort break, we will say?
I'm sure we can find something to do for 5-10 minutes in between.
Yep.
I'm sure we can. Yeah,
that is fine. So if you want to come back and join us in 15 minutes time, we will put a new link up there if you check our Twitter page, and we're going to do our world famous Stadia Pro predictions, where we get it horribly
People look
wrong.
forward to this every single month.
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure why, but
yeah,
you guys love it. We enjoy doing it.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun anyway. So if you want to join us in 15 minutes, and we'll love to see your predictions as well in the chat as well. So we'll be back in 15 minutes. So thank you all for joining us. Barry, have you anything to say?
Bye.